People everywhere are reversing type 2 diabetes with the carnivore diet and other low-carb or ketogenic diets. But a new study from Harvard claims that just 2 servings of red meat per week raises your risk of developing diabetes. And although this research may appear legitimate because it comes from Harvard, the truth is it's backed by something much darker. Let's take a closer look. When you think of preventing and managing type 2 diabetes, what's the #1 thing that comes to mind? It's blood sugar, right? If your blood sugar isn't under control, the hormone insulin gets overworked. And over time, your insulin no longer responds appropriately to increases in blood sugar. Carbohydrates, particularly processed carbohydrates like sugar and breads and pastas, easily cause the greatest increases in blood sugar. This is why low carbohydrate diets like the keto diet, the Mediterranean diet, and even the carnivore diet are all effective ways of eating that can prevent and reverse type 2 diabetes. And yet, most of these diets involve eating more meat, not less. So why is new research from Harvard telling us that we should be replacing meat with plant-based protein sources like nuts and legumes, even grains, especially when these foods contain considerably more carbohydrates than meat? Were we wrong? Does animal protein really cause diabetes more than carbohydrates? Not quite. To understand the full truth of what's really going on here, we need only look at the corresponding author for this study, Walter Willett. A simple search on the Nutrition Coalition and the food and behavior research sites will tell us all we need to know about Walter. Willett is a long-term advocate for a vegetarian diet. He's been telling people to stop eating red meat since 1990. Perhaps this has to do with the fact that he's been an advisor to at least 7 profit-driven companies that promote high-grain vegetarian diets. Or because he's a co-chair of the International Carbohydrate Quality Consortium, a group that is funded by companies that make money from selling carbs, like Barilla, Nestle, and General Mills. Or that he's been involved in numerous joint ventures with David Katz, a popular promoter of the vegetarian diet who himself receives millions of dollars from food companies. Or perhaps it's because the Harvard Public Health School that Willett works at has received hundreds of thousands of dollars from companies that promote vegetarian products, and from pharmaceutical companies that have no vested interest in reversing diseases, but would rather make money by selling us medications to treat our symptoms. All of these conflicts of interest rarely show up within the published research itself, making Willett's studies even less trustworthy. And if that weren't enough to make you question these findings, most of the results of this study and others published by Willett are merely correlations, not cause and effect. So while they may have found that people who self-reported eating more processed meat had a higher rate of diabetes, they failed to ask the question, if these people are eating more processed meat, might they also be eating more processed foods and processed carbohydrates also? I bet they are. Because here's the truth. Type 2 diabetes has been increasing rapidly over the last several decades. And this has been in parallel with the increased consumption of ultra-processed foods, especially refined grains and carbohydrates, not meat. But cutting back on processed foods and processed carbohydrates has been shown to reverse type 2 diabetes, a disease that big pharma and big food companies want us to think is irreversible and chronic. More and more treatments are coming out every year that prevent and reverse type 2 diabetes, like the low-carb diet in this video and even the carnivore diet. And you can learn more about these by clicking the screen next.